All right, for today, we're going to be looking at radicals. We know them as square roots. A radical is just a square root, but I'm going to simplify this. We know the perfect squares such that we know that the square root of 1 is 1. We know that the square root of 4 is 2. We know that square root of 9 is 3, and so on and so forth. We know the perfect square. So my radicals, I'm going to split them into two radicals such that one of them is a perfect square. So I'm going to think of square root of 9 times the square root of 2. Now, square root of 9 is a perfect square. So my answer will simplify to 3 radical 2. Now, let's take a look at question number 2. My radical 648 I can think of this as square root of 81 divided times square root of 8. Now, square root of 81, that is a perfect square. That is 9. So on the outside, I have a whole number. I'm going to multiply my whole number. So 9 times 7, that gives me 63 radical 8. I look at my radical, I'm like, I can do better because radical 8, I can split that as radical 4 times radical 2. Square root of 4 is a whole number. I'm going to multiply my whole number with my other whole number, 63 times 2. That gives me 126 radical 2. Our goal is to have our radical as simple as possible. What we mean with that is I cannot split it into two radicals such that one of them is a perfect square. Now let's take a look at something like question number 3. We're simplifying, but there is a radical at the bottom. There's no more radicals that I can simplify, but one of the rules that we have is no radicals at the bottom. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom by square root of 3. So on the top, I have 2 radical 15. I can multiply whole numbers with whole numbers and radicals with radicals, but do not mix and match. At the bottom, I have radical 3 times radical 3, which in my mind, I'm thinking radical 9, which is basically 3. Now, let's take a look at question number 4. The top is basically, the square root of 16 is 4. So on the top to begin with, I have 20. I know I said I cannot mix a whole number with a radical, but this radical became a whole number. So whole number times a whole number gives me, in this case, 20. Radical 20 at the bottom, I can simplify that as radical 4 times radical 5. So I'm going to call this 2 radical 5. I'm looking at my fraction. 20 over 2, I can simplify that as 10 over radical 5. No radicals at the bottom, so I have to multiply top and bottom by radical 5. So that gives me 10 radical 5 over 5. Now to finish this, I look at my fraction again, and I'm going to call this 2 radical 5. No radicals at the bottom.